Hi, my name is Chelsea Mitchell. Thank you all for coming out here. I know it's late, so we're going to try to make this efficient. My project is Little Fish. So first we're going to start with a little bit about me. I'm committed to the University of Wyoming. I'm going to double major in mechanical engineering and art education. Hopefully I can become a teacher. For either engineering or art, hopefully. I'm a school commission ceramicist. I have a 10-foot statue out there. Oh, here's my statue building in the truck. I've been published by the school on my CSWA, which means I have a certification in SolidWorks, which means I can 3D print sometimes. I've won Scholastic Silver Keys. I'm in NHS and AHS. I'm president of Photo Club. I've won department awards in engineering and art. I'm part of Horticulture Club. I'm just part of lots of things. I have a lot of fun. So first, this project inspiration starts from a very young age. As you can tell from this picture, I love fish. I specifically love taking care of fish, and I have fish tanks at my home. And this whole project started right before when I had a fish named Red. He looked like that. He was red. I know, I'm very creative. His fins got stuck in a filter, and it caused his fins to get all torn up, and it broke my heart because he couldn't swim anymore, so he drowned. And that was a horrifying experience. And I never intended for that to happen because I consider myself a pretty okay fish keeper, but it was purely because he had access to the machining of the fish tank. So, also considering that I have also had struggles with mental health, I know how important it is to have a pet, and especially something that relies on you, but that you don't have to put a lot of mental power into working with. So the entire project proposal is having aquariums that are designed to be low maintenance and intuitive, specifically for college students who are away from their homes, away from their pets, and away from the environment they're used to be able to take care of without having to think too hard, but will also be safe for the residents. So the entire idea from the start was to create an all-in-one package that included a filter, packaging, the actual tank itself, a pamphlet, and cards that had to do with how to actually take care of beta specifically, but also other tank mates, including fish, snails, and shrimp. Those are my favorites. This is my logo. It's called Little Fish, and to all my friends who use ChatGPT to make their logo, I made this myself. And yeah, I chose some gradients and a very nice contrast color. So let's get into it. This was my original expert advisor. Her name is Joy Buckle. She's a PhD in mechanical engineering from Carnegie Mellon, and she works as a materials scientist and associate professor at the Colorado School of Mines. Now, she was very nice, and she accepted, and then I emailed her 5 times, and she never responded. So we'll come back to that. These are my support advisors. This is my mom with her master's degree, so she's very smart. She was my banking calculator. She's a math teacher here. She taught me all my math. Not all of it, most of it. This is my stepdad, James, and he helped me critique my stuff and let me know what's going wrong, what's going right. This is my Mr. Dykstra, yes. He is my artistic advisor. He helped me with the product design and just keeping emotionally stable throughout the year in general. And then this is my precious Navita, as I promised to say to her. She is my emotional support, which I very much needed. There she is, Evelyn Clark. These are my board of directors, because originally this was Little Fish Inc., and in order to be an incorporated company, you need a board of directors. So, these are the people who sat in the back of class with me, my women, Stem and Riley. And I love talking to them, and so they ended up also being my setbacks. No offense to any of you, I just talk to you a lot. And I wouldn't say it's wasted time, but it's definitely not on task time. So, this was the original timeline. Originally, October was supposed to be devoted to the aquarium. I assumed it was a box, so I could build a box. And then the next part was going to be the filter. And the filter was specifically supposed to be designed so that, one, it would be safe for fish, and it would literally have to be seamless for the fish to not be able to interact with any of the parts that they could get stuck in. And then, so that was going to be a challenge. And then packaging, which would involve all the artistic design, and hopefully creating a cardboard package as well as a lot of information, which would all be compiled during March to April. And hopefully it would have been a nice, pretty finished product. And as it says, it was well thought out, but it was not well executed. If you would like to look more into it, here is a QR code for my 2 people who are interested. It is on a slideshow, and I'm very proud of it. I'll send it to you.
Oh, it's working over there.
Oh, it's sideways. Who did that? Okay. So this was the original design. If you turn your head like Ella was, you can see that it primarily consisted of mechanical filtering, which is essentially just having like slits or some sort of spongy material, so that way big debris don't actually get into the filtration system. If you can imagine a rock in a motor or a fish in a motor, it'd be very bad. So that's very important. It would include a bog system, which we are building in our backyard. But on a smaller scale, it would essentially be this, where you have a riparian plant, which is a plant that has roots in the water and filters the water very well because it's very high energy needing, and also has the leaves that stick out, so that way they're very productive plants. So in order to test this design, which does not involve any electrical components on purpose, because I'm not confident in my ability to use wires and water within approximately 0 feet of each other, so I did not want to deal with that. So I decided to test seal about 1/8 of an inch acrylic together to see if 1, I can make it pretty, 2, if I can actually seal together acrylic, and 3, if it would actually work the way that I wanted to. So originally, my plan was to have the water be filled up here, flow through this system, and have it fill up and eventually be pushed out back into this bigger vat of water, which is where the fish would actually live. So I tasked my physics teacher, and she said this would not work. Because if you have a tank connected to another tank, oh yeah, that's us being sad. If you have a tank connected to another tank, the water will just flow into there. Water has like surface tension, but it's not that crazy. So it didn't work, so I got upset, so I tore apart a filter. I took a chisel to it, it was a good time. Kudos to Mitchell, he helped. But I took it apart to just like move on from the aquarium, I just didn't want to think about it. So I took it apart to see the main components, which included a water pump, which is essentially just a sealed rotary vane which pushes the water all the way through the system. And then you need biological media, which we'll talk about later, that has to do with biological filtration, and chemical media, which has to do with chemical filtration, get into that later. And then piping with obstructions to debris, we already talked about that, you guys know all about it. And then the most important and amazing part is this cute little magnet. It's about half the size of my pinky, it's so important. So essentially, oh my goodness, none of these are copyright, whatever. So if you can imagine that this picture is properly cropped, there is a picture of this magnet inside of the motor that it would be sealed in. So essentially how this works is I chiseled it open and I found tightly wound copper wire that would have an electrical signal, not signal, but whatever, pass through it. And it would cause the magnet to be polarized and it would move in reaction, which would inherently just move this rotary vane. Now, I thought this was an absolutely genius idea. It's so simple, it's about this big, and it was completely sealed in plastic, and I was like, oh, I could do that. And then, so I had to go find another expert. So this is my expert advisor, Elmer Kenny, he's right there, clap for him. This is a good time. He's a biomedical imaging engineer at Brown Medical Imaging. He works with wires, which is mostly why I was very excited to work with him. Because like I said, I don't want water in my wires, that'd be bad. And so I talked to him about it, and we discovered I can't actually wind copper wire that tight. It was a very sad day and a lot of arguing, and I thought he was mad at me because he thought that I wasn't strong enough, so we arm wrestled and I lost, and it was okay. Essentially, I can't do it. So I got sad and I gave up, and so I did art. I won 3 scholastics over keys, and I got back into digital art. And so by this time, it was January, and I had accomplished nothing. So I had to create a crunch timeline, or I guess it was February. Okay, it was February. that started from March 2nd all the way till now, which is about a month and a half for those of you who love calendars. So essentially from the beginning of this timeline until now, I've been doing research literally every single day. It's been annoying and a lot of late nights. And then from March 10th to April 8th, I was working on my aquarium, which had many phases of me researching it incorrectly and buying things for a lot of money that I did not need. And then the presentation. Oh my gosh. There's a picture here, I swear. It looks essentially the same as the original idea, except it actually looks like this, where you have a corner sectioned off that hides all the mechanical parts. It doesn't hide it, but it hides it from the fish, essentially. And it does have holes drilled into it, as you can see, using the drill press, which is now my favorite machine. It's awesome. And it prevents the fish from going in, but allows water to go into the system and back out to diffuse all the oxygen and good little bits. It needed to be pretty compact because I did want it to fit in a college dorm, but still around 10 gallons because there's a lot of misconceptions people have with betas, which we'll get into later. So my research mostly consisted of bacterial growth, water levels, and how to combine compassion logistics to create something which is easy to use, but also very nice for the animals. So first we had to learn about filtration. There are three main parts of filtration that go in this order: mechanical, chemical, and biological. Mechanical, we already talked about. You just don't want things in your motor. It's a bad idea. Chemical generally works through ion exchange. And this can be done through the use of carbon or activated charcoal, which is essentially just carbon. And what it does is that it takes in ions such as chlorine, and it will break apart or add in electrons and other ions to create things like chloride, which is no longer toxic to fish. Chlorine is very common in tap and drinking water. It's fine for you, as long as you're not just drinking pure chlorine. But it is not good for fish. So turning into chloride is very helpful. It takes in calcium, releases CO2, which is helpful to water plants. It's a very good, helpful thing to have, and it removes impurities from the water, which would otherwise be toxic. The next step is biological. I think this is the most important step to specifically having a self-sustaining ecosystem. It involves removing ammonia specifically from the system using the nitrogen cycle. So essentially how this works is that fish eat something, most likely plants or a worm, depending on how they're feeling, and they'll eat something, break down the proteins in it. It will get turned into ammonia, which is generally released through the gills or when they defecate. And that ammonia needs to be turned into pretty much anything else. So it goes to nitrifying bacteria, which turn it into nitrite. Now nitrite is very bad for fish. Nitrite binds to hemoglobin, which carries oxygen in your blood, and turns into methemoglobin, which is not able to carry oxygen, which is brown blood disease. It's very bad for you. It will kill you, as well as this tiny little fish. So nitrite is very bad. So then you need nitrite oxidizing bacteria, which takes away another oxygen. No, it does add. Yeah, it adds another oxygen and turns into nitrate. Now nitrate is not toxic to fish. It is taken up by plants. It can also be taken up by denitrifying bacteria, and they turn into nitrogen gas, which just diffuses off the top. Now it is essential to have all of this established before adding your fish, especially fish that are more delicate. Some people do this by adding hardier fish, such as goldfish first, as they create a lot of waste, which means they're used to those high levels of ammonia, those high levels of nitrite, and it means that the bacteria have a whole bunch of food and will grow and proliferate, and then they'll put their more delicate fish in. You can do this with biological startup, which is just essentially bacteria in a bottle. Just put a few drops in, wait a few days. Or you can do it how most people do it who don't want to go buy more things. And you just use either established tank water, or you actually let it filter through the filter for 3 weeks and you wait. A lot of taking part in aquarium is about patience. You're dealing with animals. I know they're fish, but they're still animals with lives, and you must be patient with them. And these are the animals we're dealing with, beta splendids. We're going to talk about their native environment, evolutionary history, and captive care. So, their native environment creates a lot of stereotypes about them, because they're native to Southeast Asia, specifically marshes and rice paddies, which flood in monsoon season and dry up in the dry season. So essentially what this means is that during the dry season, they live in these tiny little puddles. And those little puddles are not very well oxidated, whatever you feel like. And so they have developed this organ called a labyrinth. And essentially it works as a lung. It's not a lung. Lungs develop from swim bladders, not labyrinths. But they developed a labyrinth, and they can go up and take a little bit of air and push that through their gills and oxidize their blood. But this is not good, it's not comfortable. It's not something they should always be doing. They're still a fish, they're not a person. So people tend to think that it's okay to keep them in these tiny little tanks, like less than a gallon, and not have any filtration or aeration. And while they can survive that, it's like gasping for air your whole life. It's okay, but you're going to be uncomfortable. It's not good for you, and you'll probably live less long. These are actual beta splendens that are found in the wild. As you can see, they're still colorful, but for the most part, they're brown. That's because they live in black water, which is water that is filled with tannins from tree roots that are in the marshes. This is their modified appearance. This is my favorite kind of beta. It's a tangerine koi male. And they were bred specifically for fighting. They're known as Siamese fighting fish. And they were originally bred for fighting, but soon fish became a common, it's illegal, don't do that. Soon it became common to have fish as pets, and these were extremely bright and pretty fish. So they got bred to have these very long fins, these very decadent appearances. And here's that. Yeah, so they got these very decadent appearances, and they're known for being very aggressive from that history and from their current behavior. So people think that they're too aggressive to be housed with others. This beta in particular, his name is Mr. Bo Peep, for anyone wondering. He is housed currently with 4 emperor tetras, which are mid-water swimming fish. Betas tend to be top-water swimming fish. And as long as those fish are smaller than him and are faster, he's not going to be able to hurt them because they can just outrun him. Which is also a result of their very long fins. He can't move as efficiently. So as long as they're not challenging him, betas will tend to leave other fish alone. He specifically has expressed breeding behaviors, which are very interesting. He has created a bubble nest, which is essentially where betas will breed. The female will release her eggs, he'll fertilize them, catch them in his mouth, and then he'll spit it back up into the bubble nest. And then he'll stay there and watch those babies until they become fish fry, which are just tiny little baby fishes. They're like this big. And then they'll fall out, and they'll fall down into the water column, and he'll scoop them up and put them back into the bubble nest until they can actually swim away. And at that point, you should separate them because he will start to eat them. So you should not keep them together for long. But he has expressed that, so he has been housed with the female beta. And he flared his gills, he flicked his fins, and she was not very interested, but they did not hurt each other. And that is something which I believe people have a very big misconception. You shouldn't house them together for long periods of time, but if they're expressing that behavior, then they're able to. And betas can also be housed with one another, but it has to be done very specific. I would only recommend it to professionals. I've only seen it work really well once. It was in a 125-gallon tank. For reference, this is 10.8 gallons. And 5 betas were housed together. It was black water, so it was 100%, you couldn't see anything in it. And there was lots of hiding places because betas are just territorial. They won't go after each other if they don't need to. So betas can be housed with others, especially other fish. We already disproved that small tanks with no filter. And thinking that betas are dumb, betas can be trained. They can be trained to go through hoops. They can be trained to bite someone's finger if they feel like it. They are animals and they can be trained. They're of course not as smart as a dog, but they're still an animal and they have a brain and they have a life and they have purpose. And I feel like a lot of people don't understand that. This is my little PSA. Because they're such small animals. And people are told a lot that fish aren't very smart, so you end up with people who won't eat meat, but will eat fish. And I understand that fish aren't the smartest things on earth, but they're still fish, and they deserve to be treated with respect and have a nice environment to live in. So, in order to do this, this is my recommended captive care. You should have aeration, so you're not just keeping them in a still water. This can be done through a skimmer Filtration, which stimulates the top of the water, which can oxidize it, creates those little bubbles. And plants, which will take up the CO2, let out oxygen. I'm sure you all know about cellular respiration. Biology was free time. We want more than 5 gallons. They can spread in small water. You don't want to let them do that. They live in a tropical climate, so most studies say that you should range their temperature from about 76 to 82 degrees. I keep mine at 79. You don't want high current because of those big old fins. They can get knocked over in the water. It causes like a lot of energy use that they don't need. So you want a low and slow current. And hiding places. They're naturally very territorial. They need places to hide and to be within their own space. And verticality is great if you want to house them with other fish. Because like I said, they swim at the top. A lot of other fish, especially schooling fish, will swim at mid-levels and at the bottom. Here's the final product I already made. And then this is another product that I wanted to release. This is the cards that would essentially have little models and betas and little information that would be accessible to people who don't want to read a bunch of articles about fish. Because I can understand that. I didn't want to read them either, but now they're on this tiny little card. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
So, like, how's chlorine bad for the fish?
Chlorine, it damages their gills.
Oh.
So it makes it hard for them to like breathe essentially. Yeah. What's up?
What do you plan on doing with this fish tank after? Like, are you going to try and bring it home?
I have 2 ideas. There's a lady in the front office who has this tiny itty bitty little beta tank, which I'm guessing is 0.5 gallons. So I kind of want to give it to her and be like, hey, love ya, but here you go. Or I'll take it to college because that's where it's meant to be, at a college dorm. Yeah.
So with the betas, can they be housed with other big fish that are like similar to them? Because I know like some things are animals that are aggressive. You have 2 like high level predators that kind of just ignore each other, like peace out.
Yeah, I wouldn't consider a beta a high-level predator. They're just mean.
This is just me.
So a fish that would eat another fish, I would not put other fish with it if you want to look at it. Generally, it depends on the tank size. If you have like a tiny little beta, but it's in a 125-gallon fish in there, they'll find a place to hide. It'll be okay. But generally, I would not house it with fish that are bigger than it if the tank is less than 30 gallons. Yes.
Would the beta try to eat like shrimp since they're pretty like slow moving?
Oh yeah, well, shrimp are slow moving. Shrimp are so fast. Sorry, not to.
I don't know, my shrimp is slow.
Well, I have like tiny little bee shrimp, so they like dart in the water. I've definitely seen him try to. I've never seen him accomplish it, but they will try to. Yes. Yeah. Right now it's not filled all the way, partially so it doesn't spill over, and partially so beta fish can jump. So sometimes they jump from patty to patty. That's their little puddles. But yes, I will add a lid at some point. Right.
You said it's self-sustaining. Is it like fully 100%, or do you still have to like add food or like nutrients?
100% would mean that I don't have a filter, I don't have a heater. So no, but if I left it alone for a long time, like if I just forgot that I had a fish tank, they'd probably be okay. I would recommend feeding and changing the water about once every 2 weeks, but feeding more often than once every 2 weeks. But yeah, it will generally just keep its same maintenance. You'll probably want to take some plants out that are dying or something, but as long as you give it like bare minimum maintenance, it should be pretty easy to take care of. Yes.
So I know you said you made your cards to make them more accessible for college students.
Mhm.
What else would you do to make them more accessible for them specifically?
I would want to pitch it, well, this is my little dream idea if I actually finish everything. I would want to pitch it to an actual college and see if they would have a program that would have at-risk students be able to sign up to have things like this in their rooms. And I would like to provide it for very little money because honestly, a fish tank and a filter are not that much money together. If you buy it together, I think it was like $45 approximately. So 45 on 80,000 is not that bad. So I feel that it would be a very helpful program. Yes.
Have you felt like
better mentally since you made this tank? Like, has it worked for you?
No. I have a fish tank at home. That one makes me feel great. This one made me cry a lot. Because I spent $100 on tempered glass, which you just can't cut. And then now well, I didn't spend it, my mother did. And then we got acrylic that I had to put together, and then I wasn't sure exactly how I was going to go about everything. I didn't know I was going to do the filter, and I didn't do the filter, so no, I did not feel great. But a fish tank that you don't have to build yourself, and you don't have to present on, will make you feel better. Yes.
What does fish fighting be illegal?
I don't have a time, but like you shouldn't fight animals.
Well, you said only in Asia, right?
I did not say that, but you're welcome to. What's up?
I have two purely theoretical
Okay,
questions.
purely theoretical.
In theory, could I use that fish tank with multiple beta fishes to start an underground fighting ring?
No.
Okay.
My turn.
Hypothetical.
I'd like, okay, yeah. Fishes,
No.
fishes is legal in most US states. That's what it's
But like,
All right, any other questions? Let's get back to
he had another
focus.
question.
a purely theoretical
Okay.
question. What is the average calories of those beta fishes?
Got 100.
Okay, got it.
All right.
Yes.
Wyoming, sure, fish
You
fighting.
need to do for like a regular fish tank that you wouldn't need to do for this because it's system.
You wouldn't need to, well, there's a lot of things that big box fish stores will do that tell you that you need to do, but that aren't 100% necessary, if that makes sense. This, hopefully, once established, I won't have to do as frequent water changes. I won't have to, a lot of people tell you to like replace this, and you should. You definitely should. But not every week like they tell you to. Yeah, it basically just, you can ignore fishing, but it will get disgusting. So having the proper, like, maintenance and making sure that there's not ammonia buildups is, yeah. That's basically, it's just how it is. Hello.
So could you replace the beta with like another small fish, relatively same size, relatively same usage?
Yeah. I mean, like, do you have a fish in mind?
Not a fish, but you.
Yes.
How often should you
Replace the what?
Plant.
Plant?
Yeah.
Oh, this. This is just a riparian plant. This will just grow here.
Oh.
Unless it dies, you should probably replace it. Yeah. Yes.
So with the fish tanks, are fish tanks usually designed for like specific fish in mind?
It depends. You can get custom-made fish tanks for specific kinds of fish. It mostly has to do with gallonage and like how, like there's different kinds of filtration systems. Like you can have like some filtration systems that, you can have external filtration systems. It's more about the filtering than the actual tank. But this was specifically designed for betas. There's a lot of things that say they're designed for betas, but essentially they're just like little gallon-wide boxes. So I would not recommend that. George?
Do you think the system can be sort of like redesigned in a way to meet aquaponic needs, for example?
Yes, absolutely. You could honestly just put a basket right here. Like, that worked pretty much the exact same. This is basically aquaponics. You could put a head of lettuce right there if you felt like it. But you would have to watch what you're feeding your fish and what's in here, because depending on what is actually released into the water, you don't want to be eating something that has like, I don't know if you put cyanide in your water. So, yeah, yes.
With the plant that's like in the filter, you're not having any issues with like the roots getting caught up in the actual inner workings of the filter?
If I ignore the plant, if I leave it to grow long enough, it shouldn't interact with the motor that much. Like we have a bunch of riparian plants that just sit in the filter, and I don't think we ever had problems with that, right?
All right. Well done. Nice job.